Well, good morning, everybody. Here's a quick rundown of what's going to be in this video. We're going to cover what happened this past weekend and how it's going to be setting up certain parts of the country to be extremely wet over the next 7 to 10 days. The pattern's quite active. We're going to look at that in the context of where we needed the moisture the most and where we're going to still have some places that miss out on it. I've got some new information from the Climate Prediction Center on what April could look like. We're going to compare that to both the GFS long range and the European long range. We're going to talk just briefly at the end about El Nino, and we're going to take a quick dive into what's going on in South America. So that's ahead of us here. You've been looking at a map that looks at the last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation. One of those areas that's going to be seeing just a lot of moisture is coming in through this region right in through here. Now, to the south of it, we are expecting 2 days of active severe weather. We'll come back to that in a few moments. But this area already saw quite a bit of severe weather over the weekend. We had a few of these storms that went ripping through there that produced some hail. So just going back to Friday, looking through early this morning, we had some storms here. Came through parts of Ohio earlier in the weekend, dropping some hail. And then yesterday, I actually got to watch these. My family's from the Springfield area, so we certainly kept a close eye on the storms that were rolling through this part of central Illinois. But if you come back to the previous map, we added quite a bit more snow to the west and a lot of rain into the west. And we're actually needing to shut this down. If you just think about agriculture in the west, we're loaded up with snow. You can see the latest snowfall map where we've gotten it over the last 72 hours. I'm thinking a lot here about the Sierra Nevada picking up another 12 to 18 inches of snow. The Central Rockies doing the same. The Upper Colorado Basin is well above average, or right above average, I should say, on its snow water equivalent and snowpack. And we need to get some heat into the western United States. But just to kind of make a point here about the snow in the west, this was put out this morning by Berkeley. And what we're looking at here is from their snow lab, how much water is in their snow as of today on April 1st or March 31st. This was made yesterday. And they've got 101 centimeters of water in the snow. So there's a meter of water, 3 feet or so of water. That's a lot of water that's going to supply much of California with what it needs for the remainder of this entire year. So it's just important to kind of keep an eye out on that. But if you look around the rest of the country where the snow was through midnight last night, we can just see here we're still dealing with quite a bit of water left in the snow from the event last week in parts of Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and still coming out of parts of the northern plains here, extending back into southern Alberta. And this will be melting, but we got to watch how these temperatures are going to behave here going into the front half of April. There's I think some good news about the temperatures once you get past tax day, which has kind of been the day I've been thinking about for a full break away from the risk of major cold. But we're going to watch a lot of this melt, and that's going to be great. We needed to put moisture back into this area. Okay, so quick look at the radar early this morning. It starts about 3 a.m. and goes through about 6 a.m. when I'm recording. And we're just kind of keeping our eye on a pretty potent system, the one that went through California, ejecting today. Now already we have this stalled out boundary. Remember talking a lot about that last week, that stalled out frontal boundary in this area. And we've got some snow this morning coming through parts of South Dakota, and here getting into this corner of Iowa, maybe some wet snowflakes in there in southern Minnesota. But the system and the way that the tilt changed is what's quite, I think, interesting about this setup for severe weather today. So we have a short wave here, there's a short wave there, there's a longer wave still considered a short wave to its south, and we also have this piece here. And what's important to note is that if you connect them all, it does look like it has a negative tilt, but each of these is kind of standing a bit more north-south than really slanting off to the southwest with latitude here. And the reason why I bring that up is because, partly spurred along by this high pressure cell that's sitting between Cuba and the Yucatan in the lower levels of the atmosphere, we're really kind of opening this thing up to some stronger transport. So if we just have a quick look here, let's get that out of the way. In my middle of the day today, kind of an elongated area, of low pressure. But we're going to have some really good low-level flow into this system. And if you come down to the surface, you'll notice that we actually have kind of backed the flow up so that it is certainly coming out of the south. So what I'm referring to here is the low levels are doing this. You saw that the mid levels are like this, and the upper levels got these short waves sneaking over the top. And that gives us the adequate amount of wind shear plus the trigger. You can see one front here and another one here that are going to be setting this all up for the risk of, of strong to severe storms. So you know that in my videos, because I really try to focus more on the bigger picture, longer range, I don't dive deep into the details. But I just want to let you know that today's severe weather risk is up to an enhanced risk here on the Storm Prediction Center's scale. And there's a broad area that has the risk of large hail, straight line wind damage, and tornadoes in this area. So we've certainly opened this up to those categories. Now, as the system rolls east, it's going to produce that same level of risk tomorrow over Kentucky and Tennessee. And there's a broader area of thunderstorm risk as well. And on the day 3 SPC map, this system finally exits east, and we'll talk about the snow in New England in a few moments. But this is going to be coming through here with the the marginal risk of severe storms in this region. So again, today, getting into tomorrow, and then as we work out there to the 3rd, where we're expecting those strong to severe storms. Now, this system still is capable of tapping into some colder air, which is why the chance of getting at least 2 inches of snow, represented on this map, it's relatively high, where it's snowing early this morning, and here around the Great Lakes, and then certainly into New England as the system curls its way through that region. So after such a mild, end of winter, start of spring, we're going to have some pretty chilly air briefly coming in on the backside of this system. Okay, so early morning all hazards weather map. Flood watch is out for this part of the Ohio River Valley. We have the winter weather advisories where we saw the snow flying this morning, and there are red flag warnings down here in parts of Texas and New Mexico. The low itself this morning is still moving out of Arizona into New Mexico and Colorado, and this is kind of the bigger trough that's going to eject across this whole region over the next few days. So let's go ahead and have a look at a couple of different models here. I'm going to show you 2 high-res models to begin the day with. The first one is the high-resolution rapid refresh. If you follow a lot of meteorologists, we look at this a lot, especially during the severe weather season. And this is simulated radar reflectivity. So this is the model predicting what the radar could look like. And as we play through mid-morning, getting us out here into afternoon, and here we are this evening, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, there's that sector that opens up. Now the wave is still way back here, but here's the sector that's opening up that we're going to keep an eye on for the severe storm. So watch through this area. Now remember, this is just simulated radar reflectivity. It's a model, and there will be differences between this and reality, but we use it as a metric, just as a proxy on where we could possibly see the risk factors showing up tonight. So this is valid 10 p.m. Central Time tonight. So again, we're going to watch this corridor right in through here. All right. As we play then through the overnight hours tonight into early Tuesday morning, that complex of storms rolls over the Ohio River Valley. There will still be storms to the south of it. And we're going to watch this system mature on its backside here as we work our way into midday Tuesday. To show you a little bit longer outlook, because this only goes out 36 hours, I'm going to go over to the high-res NAM. Now, this is not simulated radar reflectivity, but it's looking at precipitation type and intensity. So the greens would be rain. You've seen this a million times. This color represents ice, and on the backside we have snow. So this is, again, starting at 6 a.m. this morning. Notice that the models are doing something similar. By 7, 8, 9 o'clock, we're going to watch that corridor. And here's the deepest wave on the backside of it. So this is going through tonight into early tomorrow morning, playing out into midday tomorrow. This is on about 1 o'clock on Tuesday. And as the system matures and curls its way up toward New England and into the northeast, there's going to be some cold air on the backside as the trailing wave deepens over the eastern Great Lakes. And with that, we are expecting snow to wrap around the back of this. So I'll just rock back and forth over early Wednesday morning. That's what you're looking at here. And that's going to be our day 3 of the risk of stronger storms coming across, the East Coast. And this wave is going to push into the northeast, and we'll take a look at the other models in a few moments to kind of just discuss what happens after 60 hours. Okay, so we're kind of stepping up in model forecast time period. All right, from the WPC, this is their forecast for total accumulated precipitation over the next 7 days. And this was initiated this morning. So we do find a pretty good region in through here that's got a really good chance at grabbing more than 1.5 inches of liquid out of this. Well, we continue to see systems moving into the west over the next 7 days as well. And our areas that we've been very concerned about being drier are still showing up quite prominently on these maps too. Now, I just want to remind everybody something. These maps, I don't take them verbatim. I look for patterns in this, and I think that's all you should do as well. because oftentimes I've even tweeted this out last week. I said, well, let's go talk about the new AI system. I tweeted this out, I think it was on Friday or Saturday. And just to let you know, when you compare the skill scores between the AI, which is labeled now in black, the GFS in red, and the European in blue, the artificial intelligence model has minimized error in its prediction of the jet stream pattern, the trough ridge pattern aloft. I want to thank Ryan Maui for allowing me to look at his skill scores here and show them to you. So when I tell you that the AI model is performing the best, it's minimizing error the best. And what's important about that is you look at maps like this with me all the time. So this is the new 7-day forecast from the European model's artificial intelligence system. And I want to be very clear about what this map is capable of doing. First of all, it's very low resolution. It's 25 kilometers. Now, they're going to increase that with time, and they already have versions of this running at much higher resolution. But when I just tweeted out a map like this I think it was on Saturday, and I was just making a point that there's the chance that in through this region, we could get some heavy rains and really add up. But I was just thinking, I was with my family yesterday. They were over in Springfield, Illinois, which is right here. And I overheard my dad. Love my dad to death. He is, if I grew up to be half the man he is, I've accomplished a lot. But I listened to my dad talking to my grandmother. She's 92. And he goes, I'm so glad we're able to sit outside tonight and enjoy this. He goes, this morning I looked at the forecast and it said 60% chance of storms. And I thought we'd be just soaked. And it's a very common thing, if you don't study this, which my dad doesn't, to misinterpret 60% as a probability. And instead, we tend to make things binary or absolute. So for him, maybe 60% gets rounded up to 100%. You know what I'm saying? Like I tend to do that, right? It's like, wait, well, that's on the higher side of average, so it's going to be a pretty darn good chance. I better be prepared for it. And it did, we had a storm, remember, that ripped right in through here. And it was just to our north. We watched, actually took video of it and everything. But it's the point to say that for some of those folks, this is 60% and that storm went over, like, man, they nailed it. We didn't get a drop of rain where we were. But I make these maps and I put numbers on them so that we can do an easier job of interpreting the color bar. And I even give you the precision of the model, like 2.86 inches near West Lafayette, right? And so just remember, never take this verbatim. You need to do what I do and blur your eyes and go, okay, it looks like it's going to rain here. And we might get multiple chances. And then I look back into Nebraska and Kansas and Texas, which you can see of it on this map, and here across the northern plains. And I would just say there's limited chances. And I want you to do that with me, because we're going to get into a time of year when we start growing a crop in this part of the world, and we're going to hang on these hundredths of an inch, because that's what we do every year. And these models are never going to satisfy. They just aren't. They can't. They're not capable of doing that. And if they do get it right, that's a happy accident. I don't know if Bob Ross would say something like that, but that's what we're talking about. But all of my new maps that I'm developing you right now, which are all regional, and they're going to have this look to them. I'm going to overlay numbers so that it's easier to interpret. So thank you for listening to that little part. But just remember, that's how I interpret the maps. Please don't try to interpret them another way. But the reality of it is that moisture's coming through this area and we need it. You just look back over the last 14 days, and there's a region in through here that's been quite dry for not just 14 days, but over a month. Mid-South has been very dry. You then come back to this part of the plains, getting into Missouri, Texas. There are regions that have not seen anything. It's just been bone dry, and it feels as though every system continues to miss those areas. And as you know, one of the big factors that I'm watching for as we go into the spring is, what does the evolution of this soil moisture map look like? Again, this isn't measured. This is modeled. And no, it's not fully representative of maybe what's happening right local in your area, but I look at it as just another metric by which I can seek out a pattern. And I'm just looking for those areas that continue to struggle with moisture. So all of that being said, let's get into this forecast and let's talk about why we see this moisture coming through this area. And I'm going to show you this. Upper level of the atmosphere, trough ridge pattern, we're going to use the European ensemble. I favor it because it has the most ensemble members and it's got good skill scores. So as we work our way through Tuesday into Wednesday, there's the deep low that's going to basically supply enough cold air. There's that 540 line. Can you see it? That's going to be bringing in that snow back into parts of the upper Midwest. All right, that low curls into New England. I'll show you what it does there because that's a deep, a really deep layer of cold air. Already by Thursday, our next low is coming into the west, and it looks quite familiar from what we talked about last week, right? Another ridge pushing into the Gulf of Alaska, another ridge somewhere between the Hudson Bay and Greenland. And every time we see that, we just open up the atmosphere to troughs of low pressure rolling across the country. So a week from now, we're right back to where we were. Another trough ejecting out of the west. We'll see what it does to the west in a second. And the tilt's going to be critical on knowing where the severe weather is going to be. So, I got asked, is it true that if it rains on Easter, you get rain every Sunday? Well, if the pattern is active enough to give you something like this, well, yeah, you tend to get a storm system one a week. That's very common in April anyway. That's what April is. It's a stormy month. So here we go. That's a week from now. And as we play this out, there's another wave coming through here. When is this? This is the Wednesday, the 10th. And the models attempt to kind of make it appear as though the pattern calms down by tax day, which is here. But remember, the ensemble washes features out at that point. And just to make a point about this, I'm going to flip this over, not to an ensemble, but over to the AIFS system and show you that it might be a stronger signal that could be our last system coming through, meaning that once we get past April 15th, broader warmth comes in because the troughs are not on the west coast anymore. Maybe they return back a little bit to the west. And we need to see what that's going to mean in terms of temperatures and what it's also going to mean in terms of precipitation. So here we go. Let's go right on into our comparison. I finally got my ECMWF problem fixed. I don't know what it is, but they're pushing data a little bit too late to me. And as a result, a few of my maps were using incomplete data. That's what was going on. Oh, such a nutty week. Okay, we've already seen through the next 60 hours. We've talked about the severe weather threat, and here's the snow on the backside. It's in both models. We then play this into the interior of the Northeast, and that is where we're going to see some heavy snows late this week. This is going to be Wednesday night into early Thursday morning. So backside snow here. You might even get some lake effect. Look at that, some lake enhancement here and here, and some heavy snows coming in through New England. Now the next system shows up into the west as one slowly curls its way out, still pushing moisture up against the Appalachian Mountains here, getting into the Northeast. And while that happens, system number 2 rolls into the west. So where are we in time? This is Friday morning through Friday midday. We're going to work our way into Saturday as that low begins to eject. Again, a very windy system. Both models have it about the same timing. I like this to get out that far and see similar timing. And then that low comes out again, and we're going to watch once more late this week into the weekend for the risk of severe weather to the south of this next system. This map, by the way, is valid on Sunday evening. So really it's going to be a weekend risk of severe weather to the south. And we're just going to follow that up with another system. It's in both models all the way out there, day 10, something coming out of the southern plains. Okay, how about total accumulated precip? That's the European model through a week. Just kind of get your bearings down here on who's wet and who's dry. You can compare that to the GFS. Overall, I like the comparison. And if we also look at the snowfall, take a look at this. European solution. Look at that heavy snow potentially coming from maybe eastern Iowa, northern Illinois into Wisconsin. And then there's the heavy snow into New England late. If I play it all the way out until we include the next system that comes through the west, we're still dropping 6 to 18 inches of snow at some of the highest peaks in the west. Now, how well does this compare to the GFS? There's the GFS solution. So European GFS. We got chances for some heavy snow in this area. To see that again, let's go to the probability. I'm going to first show you a 10-day forecast. We're just adding up in time. That's through the end of this week, looking at the chance of just an inch. And then you can see the second system. See it right there coming in Thursday, Friday, Saturday into the west. And if I play this all the way out to 10 days, that's our 10-day chance of getting an inch. Here's the 10-day chance of getting 3 inches. And here's 6. Now this is expected in the mountains, but this is coming out into the western plains in places. This is this morning. And then watch this area right in through here. Okay. On the probability of total precipitation, here's who's going to be dry. These are the regions highlighted that are getting less than 1/10 of an inch. If we step this up to less than 1/2 inch, again, it's our western and high plains, big section here of eastern Canada, and also the southeast gets a little bit of a break. On the wetter side of this is who we have the best chance at getting an inch. If we step this up to 2 inches, that's that corridor over which we have the highest risk of the heaviest rain, which matches the European Artificial Intelligence System. That's a 10-day forecast, probability of over an inch of rain. Or excuse me, 2 inches of rain. All right. From there, week 2. Now remember, we have another system that comes out here. This is April 8th through the 14th. So we'll keep an eye on that system. All 3 models locked in on it. Drier in the northwest, though. So this could be the beginning of a warmer, drier signal for the whole United States after we get past, the second week of April. So since I mentioned those temperatures, let's go have a look at them. At 6 a.m. this morning, you can find the boundary clear as day. It's right there. And that's going to be the way the next system is going to ride. It's going to come out and just follow that boundary. That's what gives us our severe weather risk. But behind it, we have some cold air. So over the next 7 days, here's your chance of getting a frost. If we go into the daily high temperatures, here's today's highs. Going into tomorrow, pretty sharp divide in those temperatures while the northwest warms up. This is getting into Wednesday. Look at the change here. We're going to go from the 50s in Montana today to maybe mid-upper 70s, I think, in parts of Montana by the time we get to Wednesday. Much colder air moving through the Ohio Valley. But then this is all going to just continue to move. The pattern's open. So by Thursday into Friday, warmer air occupies the central U.S. The deeper trough comes back into the west. There it is. Drop in temperatures again, preventing that region from really accumulating much heat. And by Sunday, this will be when the next system is rolling across the country and we open up into the warm sector. But what I keep finding is that day 5 through 10, that's when we still have the troughs of low pressure to the west and the warmer air opening up to the central U.S. Day 10 through 15, all of that moves here. And that is a more mild pattern showing up middle month, which is something we've been kind of targeting and thinking about happening, which means we are going to move quickly in the Midwest, I think, with planting if we can get the precipitation to slow down as well. Is there agreement in the models? Well, this is the day 5 through 10 European solution, and this is day 10 through 15. So the answer is yes, they do agree on this. So in these last few slides, let's go have a look at some new information we got from the Climate Prediction Center. By the way, this is their day 8 through 14, both of them apps, so temperature and precipitation. So we're going to watch for some active field work and planting going on here because of this. But this is the week 3, week 4, which I released on Friday. And it's quite similar to what we talked about last week. They've also updated their new 1-month outlook. And so they always do this at the end of the month, which means we're going to go on about a 5 or 6 day stretch here this week where we don't have any new long-range information. The European model will be the first to release that I like to consider. It'll come out on the 5th, so we'll be talking about that. But this is the outlook for April according to the Climate Prediction Center. Before I show you my analogs again, I do want to show you also they updated their seasonal outlook for drought. And you can see that they've now changed over parts of Iowa. This goes all the way to June 30th, by the way. Parts of this very droughty area in the Midwestern United States gone over to drought, remains but improves, or drought removal likely. I mean, this is important here. But that region I continue to worry about down there in Texas, still showing up. Same thing for parts of Canada. So again, there's their 1-month outlook. Let's go have a look at my analogs. So I've been showing you these now for 6 weeks, I think, but just to kind of give you an idea that if you consider what's going on with the best years that I can find that match this one, this is what I think is going to happen. So just compare the analogs to the longer range. The biggest difference I can see is that the forecast looks wetter in the Ohio Valley. Most of this is coming this week. All right, so that was a pretty good forecast for them. Let's go look at the extended models. The first one we're going to look at here is the ECMWF. This is its outlook for all of April. All right. And if we flip this over to the GFS extended, that's the GFS extended. The GFS extended actually looks way more like my analogs. Take a look. See wetter here, a little drier in this area, drier in the northwest. That looks pretty similar. So I don't know. I think maybe we're going to watch it together, but I like it because it matches the analogs. Let's go from here on to the next thing. A quick reminder. This is a lot of cold water that's been upwelling in late March, right over here next to South America, which means throughout the next 7 or 8 days, you might see a little blue stripe showing up here, indicating that El Nino is really lost its grip and we're in neutral conditions. What will be most important in April and May is for you to watch the colder water here what we call the PMM, Pacific Meridional Mode area, and also here, which is a part of our PDO, or the Pacific Decadal Oscillation region. It's the Gulf of Alaska and off the Baja. If these get colder with time, that'll be an important signal for the rest of the country to be looking out for a weather pattern that tends to favor more blocking in summer, more of a momentum loss than a momentum gain. I'll keep you up to date on that. But as we think about kind of where we think the summer might go, it's just a reminder that as we get into summer, there are a lot of indications to me now, and this will change, that I've got these 3 areas that I'm concerned about for the risk of summer drought development. And all 3 of them stretch across the south. One here in Texas, one in the Mid-South in the Delta region, and then another over here in the Southeast. And until I have evidence to override that, which could show up very soon, those will be the areas I consider to be the greatest risk. We think that everywhere that you see here this summer has a better chance of being above average in temperature. So warm and potentially stormy summer overall. So just to give you those analogs again while we wait on the new long-range models. All right, so to finish this up, there's been rain. We talked about this coming into some very dry parts of Brazil. And now for the last month, so from February 26th to March 25th, I'll update this very soon, we now no longer see such widespread areas of dry conditions. But just as we talked about, we expected there to be kind of a corridor in through here that returned to either normal rains or drier than normal conditions while we went wetter in the corners here and down into Paraguay, Uruguay, and parts of Argentina. And some of the new longer range models do suggest that getting out from now through mid-May, that could be the area that could struggle with later moisture. Now, will this have an impact, a negative impact on safrinha corn? It is very difficult to say. We're just looking at the pattern here, and we cannot trust the model blindly on the fact that it's going to be much, much drier than normal. So don't let the colors deceive you. That's just the corridor over which I'm going to be watching now through the next 45 days. So if this continues to get drier, the stress risk increases on safrinha crops. Okay, that's all I got for you today. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll pick this up again tomorrow. Thanks.